Hi everyone, welcome to what I hope will be a very informative video. So back in early 2020, during the COVID lockdowns, when everyone was going crazy locked up at home, I decided to do something useful with my time. So I made a few videos for my YouTube channel that dealt with the topic of singing and vocalization. Now, although I'm not a professional musician or vocalist, I do have a music background. I used to sing for a choir. I made a drum line as a snare drummer at the tender age of 14, the youngest member of the drum line. And after high school, I used to be a wedding singer, something I've done on and off in recent years. In recent years, I've also released 2 singles, which you can find at my Vocalists link below. And I have an album in the making. So, although I don't consider myself a good singer by any stretch of the imagination, apparently there are a few people who like to hear me. Hi Mom! So today we're going to talk about the 10 best female vocalists of all time. Obviously, when I say all time, I'm not talking about the history of mankind. Rather, I'm talking about since the radio was invented and people had the opportunity to be heard all over. Now, apart from English, which is my native language, I also speak fluent Spanish and Portuguese, and I also sing in those languages, as well as in Italian and French. So I really don't want to make this video about me, but at the same time, I wanted to give you an idea of what my musical background is like. I've also played in a band as a vocalist, drummer, and rhythm violinist, so I know the pressures of a live performance. So here's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm not going to talk about the personal life of these artists, neither will I discuss musical terms. I will provide a link below to the videos where I do talk about some basic musical terms, which may help you understand this video much better. Here's what I will talk about. The criteria for judging the singers will be based on 5 categories as follows. A. Melody. Does the singer have a melodious voice that captivates you in one way or the other? Is their voice or sound unique and difficult to copy? B. Power. Power is not just about singing loud. It's about projecting your voice in a very powerful way, whether you're singing a high or low note. It also has to do with control and changes in your sound. C. Range. What's the singer's highest and lowest note, and does she hit those notes comfortably, or does she sacrifice clarity and melody? D. Versatility. How versatile is a singer? Does she sing different genres, different tempos, and different languages? E. Influence. How influential is a singer, both at home and abroad? Has she been able to influence the evolution of music or up-and-coming singers? So with that in mind, let's go to position number 10. And the singer who occupies that position is the Queen Bee herself, Beyonce. Now, for all the Beyonce fans who are plotting to burn down my house right now, please, let's talk this out. Let me explain why she's in position number 10. And look, when you think of the type of list that we're compiling here, there is no shame in being number 10 in this list. And let me just go on to say that she's here on merit, and the fact that she's in this list at all is an outstanding achievement. But using the criteria that I mentioned before, let me just explain why I selected her for the number 10 spot. Let's look at melody. And I had to ask myself honestly, does she have an outstanding melody that puts her head and shoulders above the others in this group, or even at the same level? And you know, frankly, the answer is no. Her voice is nice, but it's not that unique. If you do a search on YouTube, you're going to find a number of people who are doing covers of her songs, and there are quite a few young ladies who sound like her. So, not trying to take away anything from her, but it's just the truth, and I'm just talking about this from a musical perspective. Now, what about power? Her projection, to me, it's okay. Does she have a projection that reaches out and grabs you and moves you? And not in my case. I know she has a large arsenal of techniques. It's impressive, all the techniques that she uses when she's singing. And when you take into consideration that she's on stage, she's dancing, she's moving all over the place, she can control her breathing and hit those notes, that is amazing. This is one of her strongest areas. Range. As you can see in the diagram here, Beyonce covers an impressive 4-octave range. That is impressive. That's very impressive. And even though she's considered a mezzo soprano, she actually covers all 3 female voice ranges. So that's a massive achievement. That's a massive skill and talent on her part, and she uses that range very well to do a wide variety of songs. Now, as far as versatility, this is another area where she falls down. She's primarily pop and R&B, and I've listened to her songs in Spanish, the few songs she has done in Spanish, and as someone who speaks and sings in Spanish, I'm really not impressed. I'm really not impressed. It's not enough to really touch the heart of a Spanish speaker. And if we talk about influence, no doubt Beyonce has had a massive influence. 28 Grammy Awards, but we have to be honest, a lot of that influence is because of her acting. So if we talk about purely singing talent and we put the acting aside, how much has she influenced people? Yes, she has had a large influence on millennials, the younger generation. Yes, she started singing with Destiny's Child in the 90s, so people in my age group, we were exposed to her, but to be quite honest, I've never bought one of her songs. Of course, if I hear her on the radio, I would listen to her, but I have never been motivated to go out and buy any of her songs. And I think when you look at the big picture, not just North America, and you look at the worldwide picture, it helps you to balance things out a bit. So that's one area where she doesn't do as well as the others on this list. However, let me say this that I've said so many times during this discussion of Beyonce. What she has achieved is nothing to sneeze at. She's an artist in her own right, and she has achieved a lot on merit. However, when we think of the list that I have and the other people she's up against, I think number 10 is a fair spot for her. Okay, so let's move on to position number 9. And that position I gave to this young lady, Charlotte Church. Now, Charlotte Church, to be fair, may not be very popular in the United States. She's Welsh and she's primarily popular in Europe. And she tends to sing mostly classical and religious songs, and she has done some pop music, but to be fair to her, after having her kids, she kind of stepped back a bit from performing. She focused primarily on her show, her TV show. So why is she in this list? Now, if you look at the picture, you'll see that the first picture of her on the left is actually a picture of a very young Charlotte Church. Practically, she was still a little girl at the time. And the reason why, in my mind, she made the list in position number 9, her voice, and when I make these claims and the things that I say about her, usually they are not simply my opinion. It's based on my research, what other music professionals, voice coaches have said about these artists. So it's not so much me, it's what others have said and what I agree with based on my personal observation. Her voice has been described as an angelic soprano voice. I heard Charlotte Church sing a song which is from the soundtrack of the movie South Pacific, Bali High, and I was mesmerized. I was simply mesmerized. I've seen her concert performances, I've heard her records, and it's true. That voice, her soprano, is unbelievable. And if we talk about power, she has considerable power, and she also projects very well. I've seen her do duets with several artists, including both males and females, and it's impressive. If we look at the chart, her range is a 2.6 octave range, and for most singers, for most professional singers, especially those who are classically trained, usually we talk about 3 point something octave range. She's 2.6. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but the way she handles that 2.6 octave range, how she goes from high to low, and she keeps her clarity and everything, and her projection, plus that unique angelic voice, that's simply amazing. As far as versatility is concerned, Charlotte sings in several languages and different genres. And her influence, she made an impact at an early age. We're talking about someone who was mesmerizing audiences before she was a teenager. And even though she has not done a lot of singing and she has focused primarily on her TV show, her influence is there. She has won many awards and has been nominated for many others. And as I said earlier, her impact is lesser in the United States and maybe Canada also, but in Europe and other parts of the world, she's a massive hit for what she has achieved in her area of expertise. And let's face it, when the girls say, I'd like to be a soprano singer, she is someone they look up to. I'm sure pop music is probably more popular than classical music or religious or sacred music, but she's up there. And when you think of her influence all over the world and just the quality of her voice, versatility and influence are not the key factors here, but melody, power, range, all those other things. When you look at the combined package that she brings to the table, in my opinion, I think number 9 is the right position for her. Wow, so that was rough. How am I doing so far? Well, we're moving on to position number 8. And as we go higher on this list, it will become much more difficult, or it was very difficult for me to make a decision. And this is a position where I could not decide, so I considered this a tie. So let's welcome to the screen Dolly Parton and Barbra Streisand. Now, when we talk about melody and having a unique voice, these two ladies have unique voices that I have never heard anyone successfully imitate or copy those two voices. They have a unique melody, unique voices, and they're in a class on their own. As far as power, Dolly she's not particularly powerful, but she projects very well. She's a good performer, a live performer. She has done movies. We've seen some of those movies. Stage performances. She's good. She projects above average. Barbra Streisand, on the other hand, is very powerful, but she's not overwhelming. She is someone who is very good in a live performance, and that is her bread and butter. Live performances. She's very good. She has this way of connecting to the audience. Range. Dolly, she has a 3-octave range, which is typical for a professional, and she uses it very well. Barbra has a smaller range, but she compensates with her vibrato and her stability and clarity in the higher notes. When we talk about versatility, Dolly sings not just country, but also pop and movie soundtracks. One of my favorite collaborations is the song she did with James Ingram in the movie Beethoven, The Day I Fall in Love. Wonderful, beautiful music. Barbra, same thing. Collaboration with other artists, both male and female. My favorite collaboration, Finally Found Someone. It's just amazing what both these ladies have achieved. If we talk about influence, massive live performances, movies, etc., Barbra has won 123 awards, 10 Grammys, 9 1 and 1 achievement. Dolly 189 awards with 382 nominations, 11 Grammy awards, 10 wins plus 1 lifetime award. Two artists who in my book are massive performers, very talented, know their craft very well, and I could not separate them, so I ended up giving both of them position number 8. And so we move on, and here we are at position number 7, and this is a position I had to give to none other than Dionne Warwick. Dionne's melody, unique, a unique and smooth voice. Her power, I wouldn't consider her particularly powerful, but she projects so well. Her range is a modest 2.6 octave range for a professional singer, but she uses it so well. In fact, doing my research, I was kind of surprised that her range is only 2.6 octaves, because she uses that range so well that she impresses. Now, as far as versatility, she does fast-paced dance songs and slower ballads, plus her collaboration with many artists. It's just amazing what she has done over the years. And here's the thing, Dionne Warwick started out in the 60s. And with each decade, she has adapted and adjusted, and she has been able to collaborate with newer artists, older artists, everyone. There's a song that she did, Promises, 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 and the way she sang that part about promises, promises, so quickly, and I'm asking myself, when does this lady breathe? And then there's a song, Do You Know the Way to San Jose? And she can go from one end of her octave range to the other so easy, so silky smooth, and she's not struggling to breathe, and she's in control all the time. I just think that that unique voice and all these other factors coming together have given her this number 7 spot. Influence. Dionne Warwick defined the music of her era and adapted in the decades after. As I mentioned before, she has won 6 Grammys. Well, 5 won and plus a Lifetime Achievement for number 6. So who doesn't know Dionne Warwick? I think she's very deserving of this number 7 spot. Now, let's move on to position number 6. And this is another spot that I had to share between 2 singers, who are Sarah Brightman and Patti LaBelle. Sarah Brightman, British, Patti LaBelle, American. These 2 ladies have voices that are so unique, a sound that's so unique, melodious voices, to the point where these are ladies that if I were to wake up every morning and have one or the other singing to me, even without a backing band, it would be something to delight in, to enjoy. Both beautiful and clean voices, able to communicate to their audience with a range of emotions. I could not separate them, honestly. When we talk about power, they are both very powerful singers, powerful voices. Range. Sarah has a wider range, but usually sings in the mid to upper regions, whereas Patti uses her entire range. They say it's not fair to compare people with different voice ranges. For example, Sarah is a soprano. Now at this point, the audio on this video might sound a bit weird because I made an error in the first version of this video. Patti LaBelle's range, as you can see on the screen, is actually a B-flat 2 to an F6. So she's a good 3.3 octaves, which gives her a broader range than Sarah Brightman. So my apologies for if some of the later comments may not match up with this, but this is an edit I had to make to the video, and I thought it was important that I re-record this section. Patti LaBelle is just so impressive. And then, you know, you have to take into consideration that Sarah Brightman, apart from being a soprano, her bread and butter is classical music, operas. They're both good performers. Sarah is known more for her on-stage performances, whereas Patti LaBelle is known for her movies and her TV shows. So they have different settings, so to speak, different places where they express their artistic skills, different scenes, different scenarios where they express their artistic skills, but they're both good at what they do. Many people in North America may not know much about Sarah because she primarily appeals to a European audience. But let me say this, as far as influence, she's the best-selling soprano of all time, and she is more popular in Europe than she's in the USA and Canada. Whereas Patti LaBelle helped define the music of her era and adapted her style as the music industry evolved. Patti has been nominated for 13 Grammys, won 2. Sarah has won 21 awards, no Grammys that I know of, but nevertheless prominent awards. And the Grammys are typically an American award anyway, but there's a whole world outside of the USA, so I didn't want to take anything away from Sarah for that. But as far as performance-wise, two impressive ladies in their own right. Compiling this list was just so difficult, and in the end I settled with number 6 for these two wonderful ladies. Now at this point in time, you're probably wondering why I haven't played clips of the music by these ladies, and frankly, if I were to do that, this video would end up being just too long. And another thing is that if you're watching this video, then you probably heard them sing before, and if you haven't, then definitely you need to go and listen to several of their songs, not just a short clip, a soundbite, so to speak. So that being said, let's move on to position number 5. This is where things get really difficult. And occupying the number 5 position in my book, it's none other than Ella Fitzgerald. Now, when we talk about melody, Ella had a beautiful, clean voice, great diction, able to communicate a range of emotions with her voice. Power, her power was measured, perhaps on purpose, but her projection was just absolutely beautiful. Let's look at her range. Her range covered 2.8 octaves. She was considered a mezzo-soprano, and she covered those 2.8 octaves really well. Her range was from a D3 to a B5, so she went well below what would be considered a typical mezzo-soprano range, and then she hit, just about, the top of what would be considered the standard mezzo-soprano range. It's always difficult to classify popular singers or pop singers based on the categories defined in classical or operatic singing, but that's a standard and that's what we work with. As far as her versatility, she was very versatile. She was good, especially at live performances and singing at different tempos. And I have to say that back in those days, you had to be a good live performer. Either you had it or you didn't have it. And she did have it. Influence. Ella defined the music of her era, the standard by which others were judged, and she was a role model for singers who came after her. She won an astounding 13 Grammy Awards, and basically a lot of the singers that came after her, many who are on this list, they listened to her, and basically she was their role model. So, having completed number 5, let's move on to number 4. And let me say that if I wasn't being totally objective in this, and if I was just operating based on my personal choices, this lady in position number 4 would have been number 1 for me. But because I'm being objective, she is actually occupying position number 4. And who is this lady? Anita Baker. Where do I start? Melody, a unique voice and style. She basically created a style that was imitated, or others tried to imitate her, or let's just say she set the tone. She set the tone and she started something that others simply tried to follow. What about her power? Massive power, but very controlled, and she projects very well. Excellent live performances. If you have seen Anita Baker in a live performance, then you'd understand what I'm trying to say. Anita Baker is one of those performers who she can just turn up with a guy with a guitar or no instruments, just maybe a backup singer, or even if you're stomping your feet, and she would still sound good. That's how good she is. Range, impressive. Let's look at the scales here. Anita Baker, her voice covers 3 octaves, which is, typical for a well-trained singer. She covers both the contralto and the mezzo-soprano scale, although she is considered a contralto. But she covers those 2 ranges quite well. She from a C-sharp 3 to a C-sharp 6. That's massive. But it's not just the range that she covers, because like I said, 3 octaves is typical for someone who's professionally trained, but she does it so well. When we talk about versatility, she has done jazz, R&B, pop, and has collaborated with artists like Frank Sinatra, the Winans, and James Ingram. Influence, massive influence. One of the artists who defined the music of her period and a role model for many artists who would come after her. She has won 9 Grammys, 8 won, plus 1 Lifetime Achievement Award, and she has won 21 other major awards. Maybe there are others that I don't know about, but that's what I was able to dig up on Anita Baker. If there's anyone on this list who I'd like to do a duet with, actually I would like to do a duet with all of them, but if I had to choose one, it would be her. Massive performer, and I really wanted to put her in #1 spot, but I had to settle with #4 because I'm being objective. Her influence has been such that I know for a fact, this may be true in other African countries, but I know in Nigeria, that haircut that she had in those early days, it was known as the Anita Baker in Nigeria. And I'm going to assume that it was probably the same way in many other African countries. But Anita has influenced so many up-and-coming singers. She defined a generation, and to this day, she continues to have an impact on people. I remember a few years ago when she had taken a break from singing for a while, she came back and she did a song by Tyrese. You know Tyrese from, Fast and the Furious. Have I Told You I Love You? And the way she did it was just amazing. And then in one of her concerts, she invited him onto stage and they both did the song together, and it was just unbelievable. I could go on and on talking about Anita Baker, but I have to move on. I definitely have to move on. So let's go to position #3. And I know some people are going to get upset with me about this, but for my #3 spot, I have 2 persons, Aretha Franklin and Adele. I know some people are going to say, how dare you compare Aretha Franklin and Adele? But let's look at the facts here. When we talk about melody, 2 ladies with unique voices. When we talk about power, massive power without losing their clarity. Projection, excellent. Live performances, excellent. Range. Let's look at the range here. Aretha Franklin is considered a soprano. She goes from G2 all the way up to E6, a massive +3 octaves. She goes more than 3 octaves, and she's considered a soprano. Adele is considered a mezzo-soprano, and she's 3 octaves, B2 to a D6. But with what Adele has achieved in the few years she has been on this planet, and with regards to her performance as a vocalist, her worldwide appeal, and this is where we go on to versatility. Both ladies are just impressive in their live performances, collaboration with other artists. And what if we talk about their influence? Aretha, she was a standard bearer over several generations. Adele, a true talent. In spite of her young age, she has touched so many people in so many countries. Aretha, 32 nominations with 28 wins, 21 Grammy Awards, including 3 special Grammy Awards. Adele, 311 nominations, and she has won 147, including 15 Grammys. Just talking about the awards they've won. And there is no doubt that these ladies have touched the lives of many people all over the world, even people who do not speak English as their native language. So I found it hard to separate them, so for me they ended up both tying for position #3. Okay, so last 2 spots, and who do you think is gonna occupy position #2? Drum roll please. And I'm sure many of you didn't expect this, but again, we have two persons tied for position number 2. Whitney Houston and Celine Dion. Melody. Both beautiful, clean voices that touch every fiber in your soul. I don't even want to say anything, because if you've heard these two ladies sing, that says everything. That says everything. If I say anything, I'm going to spoil it. But they have voices and melodious voices that achieve so much. They communicate so much that it's just hard to say in words. You're just better off listening to their music. Power. Both very powerful singers, excellent projection, range. Let's look at the chart here. And looking at this chart, you can see why they're so close and why they end up being tied for this position. Whitney Houston, mezzo-soprano, A2 to a C-sharp 6, 3 octaves, and Celine Dion, B-flat 2 to an E6, mezzo-soprano. 3 octaves. They're both mezzo-sopranos. They both cover 3 octaves. Whitney can go slightly lower. That's a half note. And then Celine Dion can go higher by a note and a half. So we're talking about a one note difference, which is nothing really. A 1 note difference. And the thing is, while Celine can go slightly higher, Whitney can go slightly lower. So there's no real advantage, and you see why they're neck and neck in this race. Versatility, both extremely versatile. Celine's versatility is in the fact that she can sing in many different languages, and Whitney is that she's able to reach people who do not speak English just by what she achieves in her singing. Celine, she is French Canadian. French is her first language, and she ended up learning English later on. But her ability to reach you in a language that is not hers, that's impressive. That's massive. Whereas I think Whitney has had more exposure, especially in movies and soundtracks and so on. But I just couldn't find the means, something that could say, yes, this will separate them and this will have the singer standing head and shoulders above the other. Influence, massive influence by both. Whitney, 8 Grammy Awards. Celine, 480 nominations in all types of awards with 239 wins, and she has 5 Grammys included in that list. So there's not really much to separate these two wonderful singing voices. So in my book, they're tied for position number 2. And that leaves us with the final slot. And I think many of you probably figured it out already. The number 1 spot is occupied by Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey is, for me, in a class by herself. Melody. Voice of an angel multiplied by 6. Powerful. Powerful, excellent projection. But let's look at her chart. Mariah Carey can go as low as an E2 up to a G-sharp 7. That's 5 octaves. Mariah Carey, as far as I know, she's the only singer who can cover 5 octaves. And she does it with clarity, and she does it very well. She can go down to, just for comparison, look at the bottom. You see the bass range for a bass singer. This boggles my mind really. Can she go that low, as deep as a man singing bass? Oh, according to the research I did, she can go down as low as an E2. I find it hard to believe, but that's what the information says. But it's obviously the people who are saying this know what they're talking about, so I'm gonna go with it. But Mariah Carey's voice is so good, so unique, that she's not It's hard to say whether she's a soprano, contralto, mezzo-soprano, and so they've created a category for her, Supreme, because she's so good. And I just can't find the words right now to describe how good she is. But if Mariah Carey sings a bad note, that would be a good note for us, or probably an okay note for us. But everything she touches, everything that she sings is a hit. She collaborates with other people and they stand out because of her voice. But please, give me some feedback on what you guys think about this list that I've compiled. If you think I went off the reservation at any given point, give me your feedback. But trust me, I have dedicated a lot of time to compiling this list, and this is what I came up with. It's really hard for me to... I've struggled with this. I've gone back and forth, and I just couldn't find a reason to take any of these ladies from positions that they currently occupy. But I'm looking forward to your feedback, and feel free to comment below. Thanks.